Yes, indeed. It's Tuesday. Glad to have you with us on the show here today. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. I still don't have my headphone levels all adjusted and fixed in the studio. So as I fidget around a little bit to try to hear myself, try to hear Jesse has got a very stern look on his face today. We were talking right before the show started. He's in a little bit of a mood, so you might have to help pep him up a little bit. Are you ready to bring some heat for today's show?
I'm gonna try my best. It's been a really just not fun week of work so far.
And it's only been 2 days. It's only been 2 days. Has it been that bad?
It has. It really has.
All right. Well, I'm going to try to bring something for you today. It's it's a little different. It's a little bit of a concept show. I'm not really sure exactly where this thing is going to go, but I guess we'll see. 2025. The name I came up for this is the Nardo Awards in honor of Pat Narduzzi. I came up with the concept for this show around the time Notre Dame was playing Pittsburgh and Pat Narduzzi was shooting off his mouth, so it's more or less the I don't even know like the college football doofus awards. I don't know exactly. Not all of these are doofus categories. We came up with some categories, tried to keep it light a little bit. We have intermixed movies and college football, and we're handing out awards for these different categories. As you were going, I sent you the list of categories over the weekend. Then I adjusted them a little bit, and I sent you a new list this morning. As you were going through these, was it easy to come up with some nominees or, winners or whatever for these different categories? Was it difficult? What was it like as you were trying to put this thing together?
Yeah, I think the hardest part is just not recycling answers. I think there's some answers that could apply to multiple situations. And so I think the best thing to do is figure out which one is most applicable to that, to that award, and hope that you got it right. But,
Tuco S12 in response to Jesse, the engineer, says, civil engineer crying while there's a guy driving around Cleveland cleaning porta-johns in 7-degree weather. Touche, ole. I think he got you with that one. So
yeah. Hey, there's no job discrimination. Every job is important, in my opinion.
So anyway, continue your degree of difficulty coming up with nominees.
Yeah, I think that some of them were easier than others. I think the harder ones were maybe some of the movies that I
haven't necessarily seen.
Yeah, to understand the full context of the quote, but that's just a couple of them. I think majority of these I have seen.
Did you Google any of the quotes or movies or anything like
that?
Yeah,
I did watch a couple of the clips just to refresh myself. So
okay, all right.
I just know. I think the harder part is I think you'll be better at this than I will.
Well, I did come up with the categories, so it's obviously going to be easy for me. I sat there one day again, thinking of channeling Pat Narduzzi and thinking, of people and things that we could rip and those kind of things. There's just one or two that are sort of positive, I think, from my perspective anyway, but maybe you've got a different take on them. So let's just jump into this. The 2025 Nardo College Football Awards Show. And our first category tonight is the Dodgeball Jason Bateman as Pepper Brooks I Feel Shocked Award. Who are you going with? The I Feel Shocked Award in honor of Dodgeball Jason Bateman playing Pepper Brooks.
Yeah, I'm going to go, and maybe this is starting off strong, but I'm going to start with James Franklin and Penn State football. I feel shocked that he was fired mid-season, and I feel shocked that Penn State their program, when he got fired, was in that spot to get him fired. I didn't, at the beginning of the season, if you told me James Franklin were to be fired, I would have called you crazy. But here we are, and he was fired, and now Penn State, and apparently too, and I don't know how much you've read into this, I don't know who it is, but half the people at Penn State don't even want Matt Campbell, and so they hired a guy that half the university doesn't want. And so I feel shocked about the whole situation. I feel shocked about Matt Franklin. I feel bad, or not feel bad. I feel shocked about how bad Penn State was this season, coming off the heels of last season,
Right.
and I feel shocked that they hired Matt Campbell, and it seems like that's not their guy. Like it just seems like they hired someone to hire someone.
The great thing about these categories is there's something for everybody because, again, like mid to late October, when I came up with these different categories, James Franklin was probably at the top of the, I feel shocked list. But it's like, for me, it's dropped to maybe the fourth or fifth most shocking thing that's happened, especially, I will say James Franklin, Penn State, that is on my list, but it is farther down the list in a different category. But, like you've got Sharon Moore, you've got everything that happened with Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, you've got the Brian Kelly firing. So I agree with like as Penn State, what exactly did you want? Who did you want as your head coach? Like, who was out there? Like, did you really want Matt Rule that much more than Matt Campbell? Honestly, I think that Penn State lucked into probably the best candidate that you were going to get, all things considered, because I don't think Lane Kiffin was ever a legitimate candidate there. If like they actually thought that they had a chance to get Kalen DeBoer, I guess I can see why they would be disappointed in getting Matt Campbell. But I think that Penn State ended up just fine. And I agree with what you're saying. It was very shocking at the time, but it ended up falling farther down my list of the most shocking things in college football this season. But you're off to a good start. My most shocking thing, the I Feel Shocked award, I am giving to Notre Dame being left out of the college football playoffs. So, that's where I'm going with the like it's only been a little bit more than a week, Jesse. Has the shock really worn off for you that Notre Dame got snubbed by the playoff committee?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that the shock or it's worn off. I just think I've compartmentalized it and put it in a different brain right now. We're in the worst part of football season right now. College football is winding down. Notre Dame is out. NFL is winding down. The Cowboys suck and aren't going to make the playoffs. Then it comes the fantasy football playoffs, and I got eliminated in the league I cared about the most in that. And so it's just like we are officially in that kind of, like the roller coaster of football. We're definitely rapidly coming down on the roller coaster at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, it almost does feel like this last week has been a month, like just trudging through last week after Notre Dame was eliminated. But no matter what so many national people, I think, would try to tell you that, well, Notre Dame should have seen it coming and should have seen the writing on the wall and all that kind of stuff before the last ranking last Sunday. To me, it's still one of the most shocking developments since the college football playoff began, even going back to the 4-team in terms of snubs and teams in position and that kind of stuff. To be jumped without playing a game by a team that also was not playing a game in the last weekend, it obviously shocked Notre Dame. It shocked Notre Dame fans and pretty much shocked, people, I think, who covered it as well. So Jesse went with James Franklin for his I Feel Shocked award. I'm going with the Notre Dame playoff snub for my I Feel Shocked award. Next category, next award, the Inglorious Bastards, Hans Landa, played by Christoph Waltz. We simply aren't operating on the level of mutual respect I assumed award. Where are you going with this one?
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty easy. I'm gonna go with Lane Kiffin and the University of USC in regards to the contract extensions with Notre Dame football. I just thought that there was more mutual respect between the USC and the Notre Dame programs, and I think that Lane Kiffin and the athletic director aren't respecting Notre Dame football and the history and the legacy of their rivalry. And I think that it is largely led by Lane Kiffin because he can't.
Lincoln Riley. That's where you excuse me. You started off with Lane Kiffin, and I was like, then you went into USC, and I wasn't sure which direction you were going. Lincoln Riley is what you meant, though.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley doesn't have the same mutual respect for Notre Dame and Notre Dame football that Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame football have for Lincoln Riley and you. And I think it's a real disservice that we still don't have, to this day, a definite answer on whether or not the Notre Dame and USC rivalry is going to extend. And to me, that just simply shows that USC has a lack of respect, mutual respect for Notre Dame.
That's a good one. I like that. That's really good. I think for we simply aren't operating on the level of mutual respect. I assume. I think that fits into this nicely. And I honestly didn't think about that. I should have that's really good. Because of where the situation is with the potential of a renewal, two rivals who have been playing for basically a century now for where that rivalry is. I think that the lack of respect for the rivalry is a big part of why they are where they are right now. So I like that. I like that a lot. We simply aren't operating on the level of mutual respect, I assume, award goes where Joe is talking about the ACC fiasco for how they handled the whole Miami versus Notre Dame debate. Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame always worked under the assumption that they had a committed partner in the ACC, even if they had a bit of an open relationship, it obviously was not full-fledged. And, that's what people from the outside looking in want to tell you. It's like, well, again, what do you expect? The ACC's got to protect its own and all that kind of stuff. Okay, but Notre Dame is still part of the fold. The ACC being in business with Notre Dame has been good for the ACC, and it's been beneficial for Notre Dame as well because of all the perks that come with it. And there is no ACC network if not for Notre Dame. There's a lesser value to the ACC's TV contract with ESPN if Notre Dame is not involved. And there are fewer butts in the seats as well in ACC stadiums if Notre Dame's not involved in that. So I get that the ACC stood to lose out on college football playoff money if it didn't get a team into the playoffs, and we all understood the head-to-head and all that kind of stuff. But Alabama was in there for the ACC to compare Miami to as well, and they didn't do that to the extent they didn't play the Florida State win over Alabama on a loop on the ACC network like they played the Notre Dame Miami game on a loop on the ACC network. So that is my Hans Landa. We are simply not operating under the level of mutual respect I assumed award. The ACC fiasco with Notre Dame.
Another reason for my bad mood today is the internet has been in and out at our house. So
lovely. Your internet is out there in the 7-degree weather with the Porta-Johns, chasing around Cleveland right now.
I think these extreme temperatures are definitely having its way. And it's weird because our downstairs neighbor is gone. Oh, that's the other thing that's been really annoying me. Not to get too far down a tangent, but
here's what grinds my gears by Jesse Stiers.
Our downstairs neighbor decided to take in a stray cat, and stray cats are feral and pee wherever they want. So what do you think has been lingering in the hallways of our apartment?
Good times.
It's just been quite the accumulation over here in Cleveland, Ohio.
I guess so. Move over, Parma. Yeah. Okay. Next category, the Seinfeld, George Costanza, Jason Alexander, It's Not a Lie If You Believe It's True award.
Yeah, I thought that this one could go a lot of different ways. And I think this one is one of the more vague ones. But what I'm going to go with is the Alabama not dropping after losing their conference championship, because if you look at the 68 other conference championship games that were played in the college football playoff era, 66 of the teams dropped a spot. This year's Alabama, and whatever year TCU made it, but TCU went to like double overtime or something, I think, in their conference championship game and lost by one possession. We watched Alabama get blown out. And so to me, it's not a lie unless you believe it's true. Alabama not falling after being absolutely destroyed in the conference championship, I think, falls in nicely to that situation.
I think we're in alignment on this one because mine is definitely adjacent to yours. You're talking specific to the Alabama situation, and
I
my
maybe am going at a micro level. You're maybe
yeah
more macro.
yeah my well I don't know if it's micro. Mine's a little bit micro as well. It's just college football playoff selection committee chairman Hunter Yurachek. That's where I'm going. Specific to what you're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a new word salad king, and his name is Hunter Yurachek. And he comes out after week after week and tells us that Notre Dame is a better football team right now than they were in week one, as in comparison to Miami with where they had them ranked. But then he tells the committee to go back and watch that Miami Notre Dame game in week one over the Irish. What is that? Yes, Miami was better that night. I think that, everyone conceded that, and he conceded that, but by his own rationale, he had like, again, he had been saying for weeks, well, that was week one. Notre Dame is the better team right now, and had basically been saying, that was not as important in the moment as what was going on in November. So it never made sense. And then when you look at, kind of how he came out and explained things week after week, he tells us that the committee is impressed by Alabama going for it on fourth down and, beating a 5-7 Auburn team that had fired its own coach and all that different kind of stuff, basically just making up mumbo jumbo as he went. And, I guess in his defense, the committee chair is put in that situation every year, no matter who the committee chairman is. He has to come out and explain those kind of things because it's a TV show after all. But on and on and on, it might actually make sense in his head, but it was just quite a lot of, like he said, the quiet stuff out loud more times than not. So, again, it's not a lie if you believe it's true. And I've got to give it to Hunter Yurachek. But again, I think that we're kind of like, we're at least adjacent to each other with that one. I can't tell with your internet, like what's a pregnant pause and, what's like a choppy internet or what's going on right now. So let's take a timeout. When we come back, we will continue with more 2025 college football playoff awards. We have more categories to get through and more awards to hand out. We will do that as we continue our number one of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue Budweiser's weekday sports beat with irishbreakdown.com. We're doing 2025 college football awards, the Nardo Awards, if you will, on today's show. In the YouTube chat, Bitten by the Party Animal says, we really do miss you when you're gone, Jesse. So you got that going for you.
Yeah.
Put a smile on your face. Come on.
I'll be here more often since Vince had surgery or whatever.
Well, we got a little bit of a holiday schedule the next couple of weeks, so it's not going to tax you too much.
We'll see.
Come on. Salty Virginia Peanut says if the College Football Playoff Committee did its job correctly, it wouldn't be so embarrassing for the chairman to be interviewed about it. It's hard to disagree with that, and that's why Hunter Yurachek gets the award that he got. It's not a lie if you believe it's true. And Travis Shuttleworth, 630, the ACC is a dead league. Notre Dame should completely separate all football ties with them. Travis, we did a show about this last week. You can go back and listen to it if you want. I believe it was on Friday's show, wasn't it, Jess?
I believe it was Friday's show. While I agree, like they always tell you, if you're going to leave one situation, you better be leaving for a better situation. And so until Notre Dame has a better situation, they can't just, sever ties. And the ACC is providing a lot of power for opponents now, and no other conference is. And so Notre Dame's got to find a way to leverage the ACC short term and maybe get some of those tougher opponents that they would like, more of those marquee opponents. And then long-term leverage them as well, so you can get out of that contract and hopefully find a better arrangement, within the next 4 to 8 years.
Michael in the YouTube chat, fact is the committee was never leaving the ACC out. That's why we're sitting at home. The conference won out. I completely agree with that.
Should have put Duke in then.
You would have gone with Duke?
If that's who you wanted to play in your ACC championship, then yeah, they deserved it more than Miami.
Same Duke team that lost to UConn and Tulane, and
still won the ACC over Miami, SMU, Pittsburgh.
True. Or you should have just had a freaking rule to put your best team in the conference championship.
That's what I mean. That's kind of what I was getting at. Is if you didn't want to use that, a trump of a tiebreaker rule and have Miami in there, then you deserve the concept. Like the ACC got to not only get out of that fiasco that was ACC championship, but they also got Miami into the college football playoff. And so to me, they struck out on both, but somehow got a hit on both. And so that's the frustrating part, is like, if you weren't going to remove Duke from that championship game, then Duke should have got all of the rewards that come with winning the ACC championship.
Yeah. It's hard to disagree with that. All right, let's hand out some more awards. The Anchorman, Ron Burgundy, Will Ferrell, that escalated quickly award. Who are you going with here?
I think you could go with a multitude of things on this one. But if you remember in Anchorman, he goes up there, the first Anchorman, he goes up there on live television, reads the prompt, says some stuff that he shouldn't, and he gets fired.
He will read anything that is in the teleprompter. That's right.
Anything. And then his life starts to spiral after that, after he gets fired. To me, this has to be the Sharon Moore Award, because he goes from fired, and the next report you see, he's in jail. And I was like, wow, that escalated really quickly. And so, again, drawing the parallels, he reminds me of Ron Burgundy getting fired and then just absolutely spiraling into, just a really, really bad downward situation.
Salty Virginia Peanut says Pete Bavacqua's series of interviews after the snub, just because there were interviews that he did that I didn't even realize he did until later in the week. He was all over the place. Like he was hitting the show. There were a couple, and obviously he had his press conference, but he definitely escalated the aftermath very quickly with his follow-up responses to the playoff snub. That's for sure. This is where I went with James Franklin getting fired, though, because you go from January playing in the college football playoff, the national semifinals, to you're 3-0, The following season, you're a top 5 team. A lot of people think, like you're considered one of the favorites to win a national championship. People think you've got one of the best quarterbacks in the country and the whole thing, but they go from all that 3-0 to first you lose to Oregon, then you go on the road and you lose to a bad UCLA team. Like that shocked everybody, and they followed that up with a loss to Northwestern, and then it was like from 3-0 to 3-3, and James Franklin is gone. Just a handful of months after playing in the national semifinals and after 11 plus years. So that it escalated very quickly for James Franklin at Penn State, his firing. And we have lost Jesse once again. So hopefully we can get back and get him back in here sooner than later, as the internet is not cooperating today. We will. There he's back again. I'm looking at 2 different versions of you right now on the backstage on this thing. Your internet is doing some weird things over there right now in the land.
Like I said, it is throwing fire onto this rapidly burning day.
That's right. How about as we continue with our 2025 College Football Playoff Nardo Awards, the Jerry Maguire, Rod Tidwell, played by Cuba Gooding Jr., Show Me the Money Award.
Yeah. Again, this is one you could go a lot of different ways with, especially with the NIL and players, making decisions, off of the money. It seems like, but I'm going to go with Brian Kelly and LSU. And the reason I'm going to do that is because he got let go and they thought that they were going to get, out of that 30 or 40, however many millions dollar buyout there was. And Brian Kelly was basically just like, all right, you want to fire me? Well, show me that. That's my. There's millions of dollars that you guys still owe me. I almost went situation at LSU and his buyout.
All right. Your internet is still struggling over there. You're chopping up through part of that, unfortunately. But it was the gist of it was Brian Kelly and the buyout, and Brian Kelly holding out for the money. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So I am going with all of the head coaches who got big fat pay raises and extensions for staying put, thanks mostly to Penn State firing James Franklin. But, like all those other openings out there as well. You had Kurt Cignetti at Indiana. You had Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. You had Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. And, of course, you had Matt Rule at Nebraska as well. Like all of these guys cashed in on the fact that, they all of a sudden became in demand, and that James Franklin firing helped them out quite a bit. And then you had some other job openings obviously come open, between Florida and LSU and everything else that happened. So I'm giving the Show Me the Money award to those guys who got paid from the fact that there were some job openings out there. And I will say this, I am shocked that Drinkwitz stayed put at Missouri. Like I don't know exactly how much deep interest there was in Eli Drinkwitz, but he's had some success at Missouri, but I really feel like where they are with, between their facilities and everything else going on at Missouri, I feel like Eli Drinkwitz has probably hit a little bit of a ceiling there with the Tigers in Columbia. As Jesse comes back in, he is on. You're much crisper, it looks like, on your phone right now than you were on your computer. Good call. Good audible, making that switch.
Thank you. I'm hoping that this, the Wi-Fi might let me down, but the AT&T towers shouldn't let me down. So I'm going to try to reboot. I just restarted the computer. Hopefully it gets a little bit better. But in the meantime, I will stay on this. I hope the people appreciated my Brian Kelly award, because that's what he did. He told LSU to show him the money when they told him they were going to fire him, and said, oh yeah, we're actually not going to pay you out. And he was like, the F you are, you're definitely going to give me the rest of my money.
I mean, it's the one thing that I agree with Brian Kelly on. Like, you signed a contract and they gave, like in the contract, it included what the buyout is. And just because the state of Louisiana tried to play poor and it's like, well, we don't want to do that. And they tried to find some cause. I mean, show him the money. I agree with that. I was saying, my show me the money was all these coaches like Signetti, Drinkwitz at Missouri, Clark Lee, and Matt Rule, who all got
BYU.
big extensions. Yeah, I forgot about Kalani Sitake. That's right, BYU as well. Like, they all got nice extensions from the fact that there were other job openings out there. And before you came back in, I was saying, I don't know exactly what the demand for Eli Drinkwitz was, but to have success, the kind of success that he has had in back-to-back seasons at Missouri, like just being even close to playoff contention and doing that in the SEC. And when you compare Missouri's facilities to other, most of the facilities in the SEC, I'm shocked that if there wasn't, if there was true demand for Drinkwitz, I'm shocked that he actually stayed put and signed up to stay at Missouri rather than moving on for one of those other positions. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there might have been better upside at some of those, other positions. To me, this kind of ties into Kalen DeBoer as well. I don't understand how everyone thinks they just have a shot at Alabama, unless Alabama was really tinkering on if they don't make the playoffs, that he was going to get the boot type situation, compiled with that Florida State loss. But I like yours a lot because I feel like all these college football coaches were able to, gather these extensions and maybe, spots that, like you were saying, Drinkowitz, it's like, did you really want an extension at Missouri? Do you think you maybe reached your ceiling there at Missouri? You've had a couple hot seasons. Like, to me, this is the time to get out because I think you are not going to be in that top tier of SEC schools year in and year out. Like, maybe Alabama, LSU, Texas, Oklahoma. Like, you're not going to be in that top tier. So why not make your life a little easier and go to a Big Ten type conference and potentially have the same resources recruiting wise, but play in a conference that's a little bit more favorable. But that's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. That's exactly kind of where I was coming from. Irish English wants to know if there is so you're saying there's a chance award. There is not, but that's a good one as well. Trying to think of a you're saying there's a chance off the top of my head. Keep that in the back of your mind, and maybe we'll see if we can come back to it before we finish up here, unless you've got one off the top of your head.
I've got one off the top of my head.
Okay, go ahead.
It's got to be the James Madison situation. Them getting in
good one.
As another group of 5 at large, and it's like, we all want to write off James Madison, and maybe rightfully so, but James Madison at the same time is going, so you think, like, you're telling us there's a chance? Because if you're James Madison, it all resets at this point. No one cares what you've done up until this point. You're in. You're one of the 12 teams in, and if you can go on and just, like, if they win this first round, we'll have to hear for eternity. This is why you let group of 5 teams into the playoff.
I didn't even tell you. We were at James Madison over the weekend.
And I noticed that, and I wanted to text you more about it and be like, how's James Madison's facilities and his campus buzzing a little bit?
Hey, actually, because the hotel we stayed at was right on the edge of campus. So I walked through campus Saturday morning because the game was at 4:00 in the afternoon. So I had some time in the morning. They've got really nice facilities, especially for, a place that small. I did see something today about someone reported that James Madison students, there's like a $3,000 fee that, like James Madison takes from them that goes to athletics to help pay for some of that kind of stuff. But they have like a pretty nice football stadium. They've got like for that level, basketball, they've got a really nice arena, nicer than some of the ACC arenas even that I've been to, and obviously it's a private school, so there's a lot of donors and a lot of money floating around. The funny part, though, the night before, we were our bus, the team bus, was going through, I guess it's downtown Harrisonburg, and the bus had like Notre Dame logos on the side. The bus driver had put them up there, and so there was like a little bar or a club or whatever it was that we were driving by, and there were a bunch of James Madison students lined up to get in, and one of this girl in line to get in the club looked up and she saw the Notre Dame logo and she flipped the bus the bird. It's like, what are you mad at Notre Dame for? You're in the playoffs, like,
Yeah.
what's this all about? It's a little misdirected, misguided animosity. I don't know where that's coming from. Outbound though, you're saying there's a chance that Jeremiah Love comes back, and that's kind of where we are right now, because he did leave it at least open enough at the Heisman ceremony over the weekend. Did not give a definitive answer. He only said that he'll be making his announcement after he talks to his family within the next week or so. So, I mean, like, that's out there as well. Swandong says more like Price. I mean, I think both of those are out there until they make an announcement on what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's just wishful thinking at the end of the day.
I think so as well. But until they make an announcement, so you're saying there's a chance.
What would you give higher odds, James Madison winning or Jeremiah Love coming back?
Wow. I'd have to say James Madison winning, honestly. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. I think there's like a -% chance that Love comes back.
I think so too. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll finish the hour with more 2025 Nardo College Football Awards for this season. I've got one of my favorite ones coming up next. When we return, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Hour number 1 of the show. Plenty of Notre Dame football talk coming up in hour number 2. We've been doing our Nardo 2025 college football awards for the season. And there was a question or two. Swandong says, what are the odds Price comes back versus James Madison winning? I would still give James Madison winning better odds than Price. I just don't see either one of Love or Price coming back. Do you?
Unfortunately, I do not. I said before I'm holding out faith on Price, but it would just be, I mean, and you start seeing more and more of the grades on him, and you know, he keeps climbing, I think, on the big board. It would just be a disservice to him and his career to stay, you know. I just don't know what he could gain potentially, but besides maybe personal accolades and team accolades at Notre Dame at this point, you know, like he's still like, as a fundamentally sound running back, I don't know what he's going to improve on next season.
Right. And he's been here for 4 years now. He's already had a major injury early in his career. And, you know, like when you look at Mel Kiper's big board, it's like Love 1 and Price number 2. There's just no reason for him to come back to college for another year and risk injury. Like they both just need to go off and get paid and start their professional careers. And, you know, just like Kyron Williams was a late round pick, but look at where he is in his career right now in the contract that he's got, you know, like that's why Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love just need to head off and get out there and go. All right. A few more of these awards categories before we get to the top of the hour. The next category we've got The Departed, Mark Wahlberg as Sergeant Dignam. I'm the guy who does his effing job. You must be the other guy award. Who you giving this one to, Jesse?
I think this one is really easy, especially when you consider this person's personality. I have to give this to Kurt Signetti when in the same room as the other as the other Big Ten football coaches, because he just looks around and he has to be like, guys, I've been here for 2 years. I'm the guy who does his damn job. You guys must be the other guys who just continue to lose in the Big Ten every year. You know, like what's so hard about this? I came here 2 years. I'm already 2-time college football playoff appearance. I've won the Big Ten regular season. I've won the Big Ten championship. I got a Heisman quarterback. Like as much as I hate Kirk Signetti, and this is an arrogant award, the guy wins, and you can't fault a head football coach that just does his job 24/7.
Yeah, I've got Signetti coming up on another award. That's not a bad one. I mean, you know, he is the guy who does his job. You cannot deny that, no matter what you think of Kurt Signetti. Like, to turn Indiana into what it is right now compared to what it has, you know, historically was forever before Kurt Signetti showed up. You can't deny this. I'm going closer to home, though. I like that you went with Signetti at Indiana because, you know, like most of these are a little bit more pejorative, but this one is robustly positive. And I'm going with Mike Mickens. You know, like I said, I'm staying right here. Mike Mickens, the dude who does his job. He just rolls up his sleeves. He goes out there. He recruits some of the top defensive backs in the country. When you look at these last 3 cycles and you look at the kind of commits and the signees that he's got, and then he gets them on campus here at Notre Dame, and he cranks out All-Americans in the secondary once they get here. So Mike Mickens is I'm the guy who does his effing job. You must be the other guy award.
I like yours. And I had a hard time because I think you can make all these awards centered around Notre Dame if you really wanted to. And so I'm trying my best trying to, you know, like spread love to the rest of the college football world.
See, Indy Forever, like as much as I love the quote from Pulp Fiction, it's a quote that I can't use on the air. So like I can't say it. So as many times as you put it in the chat, I can't say it on the air. I can't even like disguise putting it on the air as much as I love that quote. But
I think a better Pulp Fiction is when Samuel L. Jackson, they're in the diner and they've got the bag of wallets and he says, you know, which wallet is yours?
reach in the bag and get my wallet. Which one is yours?
The one that says I
bad
think
mother.
I think that could be an award. The one that says bad mother award.
That's right. I love that one as well. It's pushing it. It's pushing it a little bit. Um, okay, next category in our college football 2025 awards, the Top Gun Maverick Tom Cruise. This is the only look I've got award.
Yeah, this one was the hardest one for me, so I hope everyone gives me a little bit of grace on this one. It's going to be very specific. It's going to be related to Notre Dame. But if you remember that halftime, or was it halftime or maybe into the third quarter? No, it was halftime, right before halftime. The Purdue game where the Notre Dame game went into rain delay. And I think Peacock or NBC did that little halftime interview with Marcus Freeman. And you could just, the look on his face in regards to how bad the defense was the first month of the season. This is the only look I've got for how bad our defense has been the first 4 weeks of the season award.
That's a very good one because like the look on his face.
If you hit pause during that interview, I don't think I've seen Marcus Freeman much more. This is the only look I've got for you, and it's pissed right now.
That's right.
Award.
That's right. But fortunately, we have seen other looks, much more positive looks from Marcus Freeman other than that one. But you're right. Like in that moment, that was the only look that he was going to have. And that's why you gave Curt Cignetti the last award. I'm the guy who does his bleeping job. You must be the other guy. This is the only look I've got award goes to Curt Cignetti because the man literally only has one look. It doesn't matter what the situation is. Curt Cignetti has one look because, like where this came from, you might remember early on in Top Gun Maverick, Hondo says to Maverick, "I don't like that look, Mav." And Maverick says, "It's the only one I've got." But like, it's actually the look on John Hamm's face. Like that is the one comparable to the look that Curt Cignetti always have. Like that's the one that reminds me. It's that combination of every platoon sergeant, hard-nosed coach, every girlfriend's dad, once he knows, like what you're doing with his daughter. Look, that is the look that is always on Curt Cignetti's face. He just always has that disgusted, I'm the smartest and yet smuggest guy in the room. And I also have nothing but disdain for everyone and everything around me. Look, that is the look that Curt Cignetti perma has on his face. Like the ref just made a call that he's mad at. That's the look. Sideline reporter just asked him a question that he doesn't like. That's the look. Quarterback just threw a touchdown pass to take the lead. That's the look. My quarterbacks at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. That's the look. It is always, it never changes. One look on the face of Curt Cignetti. So that
was a good one.
All right. Thanks. I appreciate it. We're running. We're going to run a little bit short on time. Are there any that you definitely want to get to before we wrap up this first hour and before we get to rapid fire in the second? I do have a Pulp Fiction, like you mentioned, we've got a couple mentions, not the bad mother bleeper, but the Samuel L. Jackson, Jules Winfield, "If my answers frighten you, then you should cease asking questions" award. What is your nominee for that?
I didn't prepare for that one. I didn't see that on the revised list. Of the ones that we had left, I liked the Too Much Bark for Bite award. That's why I didn't notice it, is because I didn't scroll down all the way. That always usually helps.
There are a long list of categories on here.
See, I think the thing is, too, is we could run this back when Vince is back, because I know he would enjoy this as well.
Yeah, at this rate, I don't know exactly when Vince is coming back, but
you give your response to the Samuel L. Jackson, Jules Winfield. I need a little bit more time to think.
This is actually my worst one, but I went with Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss while they're playoff bound, like telling his assistants either get on the plane or you're not coming. And then, Ole Miss lets the assistants come back, but they won't let Ole Miss come back. And, he coaches, they're going to coach the Rebels throughout the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. So that's my Jules Winfield award.
Okay. I can't say that I have anything better than that. So what I'm going to do is give you the one I had next, the Captain America, Jesse the Body Ventura from the original Running Man, More Bark Than His Bite award. That is going to Diego Pavia after his Heisman, uh, rant. Basically, the guy just saying, "F all the voters" and all that stuff. And it's like if you were gonna win, like your game would have showed it, right? And so to me, and like it doesn't help that he's a short quarterback as well. So like I think of my small dogs that are all bark, no bite, and I just think of Diego Pavia just popping off after for not winning the Heisman basically, and it's like, dude, you're just more bark than it's bite. Like no one cares about you, and what you did at Vanderbilt. So that was my last one.
Yeah, it was a little bit much. It was a little bit much. I agree. My more bark than his bite goes to Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark. That's where I went.
That's a perfect one after his on-field interview.
Yeah, exactly. Between that and the thing at the conference last week, he's just one of those guys with a very high and very unwarranted opinion of himself. It's like, okay, cool. Okay, I guess you kept the Big 12 together, nice little feather in your cap, even if you had to go out and five schools that were group of five teams, like to pad up your conference numbers and all that kind of stuff. But you also lost your two biggest brands, Texas and Oklahoma, to the SEC. That happened on your watch. But okay, go ahead, pat yourself on the back. You got a nice little TV contract that pays out decent, but he goes off, shooting his mouth off about Pete Bavacqua, and all that kind of stuff. Well, Notre Dame made more in their college football playoff run last year and also won more playoff games during that one college football playoff run than the Big 12 has made, and more wins for Notre Dame than any, than the Big 12 combined in the time that Brett Yormark has been conference commissioner. But okay, go ahead and keep barking about yourself, Brett Yormark. Okay, go ahead. Pat yourself on the back a little bit more. I get it. I did want to do one more. The old school Dean Pritchard, Jeremy Piven, are we sure this guy is good at his job award? And I actually had two nominees here. One is Penn State athletic director Penn Kraft, who fires James Franklin and then, as a fallback ends up with Matt Campbell. But, he's the first, the first major school to fire a coach. And then they ended up being, I think, like the last, to end up actually hiring a coach. But then I also went with ACC referees. I think ACC referees, are we actually sure these guys are good at their job? And I don't really think that this needs any explanation for the way they performed throughout the entirety of the college football season. So ACC refs, are we sure these guys are really good at their job?
Yeah, it's funny. I picked Penn State athletic director for that one as well because it's like you fired a guy, you didn't have you ran through all of your supposed wish list guys, and then at the end of the day, they hired someone that you didn't even sign off on at the end of the day, and so it's just like,
Yeah.
what is going on over there at Penn State?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that is our 2025 Nardo College Football Awards for the season. There were a couple categories we didn't get to, and like Jesse said, maybe we'll just save them for Vince when he comes back. And don't forget, next week we've also got the Festivus airing of grievances show that we've got coming up next week. So we've got that to look forward to still. All right, we're going to take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, it's rapid fire in hour number 2. A lot of Notre Dame football talk and more coming up in rapid fire. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's hour two of Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Glad to have you with us on this Tuesday as we roll into rapid fire time. If Jesse is with me, I don't know exactly. There he is. Starting to get scared there. You had the screen shield up. Ready for rapid fire?
I gotta unmute myself first, but I am ready for some rapid fire. I this day just keeps firing on and on.
Is that good or bad? I know it started off bad. Is it at least better now than it was an hour ago?
It is better. It is better.
All right. All right. Let's see how it goes then. See if we can keep that rolling. Fill in the blank. Jeremiah Love became Notre Dame's first Heisman Trophy finalist in the last 13 years this season. It's blank that neither of Notre Dame's last two Heisman Trophy finalists were quarterbacks.
I'm going to go sad. And the reason why it's sad is because unless you're a quarterback, you're not going to win the Heisman. So let's get that off the table right now. And then I also think it's sad because it really has shown, and this isn't something that we need to hammer on or dwell on or keep bringing up, but I mean, it's just obvious ever since Brady Quinn and Jimmy Clausen, it's like, what has Notre Dame done at the quarterback position? It's obviously been a hole in the Notre Dame, football program, a black hole, really. And I think you can say, for lack of better terms, it's a reason why they haven't won a national championship as well. The college football is largely revolves around quarterback. I mean, let's look at IU. Let's look at all these really good programs over the last any of these Alabama teams, Clemson teams. It's like if you want to win a college football championship, you need a good quarterback, and it's what's been holding Notre Dame back. So it's no surprise, and it's saddening that Notre Dame's last two Heisman finalists were a running back and a linebacker.
That's right. I think we're along the same lines in this kind of what we're thinking because Brady Quinn was the last Notre Dame quarterback who was a Heisman Trophy finalist, and it's amazing. That's been almost 20 years ago, 2 decades at this point. Think about that. Like, think about what you were doing and how old you were 2 decades ago. Like before Brady Quinn, you go back to Rocket Ismail was the last Heisman finalist before Brady Quinn, and that was in 1990. And then obviously Tim Brown winning the Heisman in 87. And so, piggybacking on what you're saying, it just really shows, one, the Heisman typically goes to the quarterback of one of the best teams in the country. And Notre Dame has not had that, I guess, collision of great team, elite quarterback. And they have especially, as you said, have lacked the elite quarterbacks with the exception of going back to Quinn and then Jimmy Clausen. And obviously Clausen, he was good, but not good enough. And the teams obviously weren't good enough. And I feel like we're finally at the place where the marriage of those two things of the elite quarterback with a guy like CJ Carr and the elite team as well with where the program is for Notre Dame, especially when you flip it to the potential for next year. Like those two things haven't come together for a long time, but I feel like we are in that sweet spot where they are finally together, and those things are going to change now. So flip it forward now. Over under 3.5 Heisman Trophy finalists that Notre Dame will have in the next 13 years. Because again, 2012, Manti Te'o being a finalist, and this year, Jeremiah Love, those are Notre Dame's last two Heisman Trophy finalists, 13 years apart. So the question, over under in the next 13 years, 3.5 Heisman finalists Notre Dame will have.
I'm gonna say under, but I'm not. I'm gonna be real close. I think the number is definitely 2. I feel more comfortable about 3, but 4 makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable because really you'd be looking at a Heisman finalist every 3-ish years. That's a little bit too rich for me. I definitely think CJ Carr is going to get one. I think with how Notre Dame is recruiting and hopefully how how CJ Carr kind of transforms the quarterback position at Notre Dame along with Gaduli, Denbrock, and Freeman. I would like to say more guys are going to find their way in there, but again, I definitely think Carr will be a finalist. And so, do I think Notre Dame is going to get 3 more on top of Carr in the next 13 years? I don't think so, but I definitely think they'll get more than one. So I got to go under.
Okay, so you're saying you're in on Carr next year being a finalist then, based on the answer that you gave.
Either that next year or the year after. At some point before he leaves Notre Dame, he'll be a finalist. Maybe multiple times. I don't know.
I mean, the question is, does he stay after next year? Because if he has the kind of year that we think he's going to have next year, he's probably heading to the NFL the year after that, right?
I mean, yeah, you would assume, especially because he had, he did take that red shirt year, so he would meet the age requirements, or I guess like the classification requirement. So yeah, I don't know how many it's going to be, but I definitely think he gets to be a Heisman finalist, and then goes on to be a top 10 pick in the NFL.
Bernie has supreme confidence. He says if Price and Love come back, the Irish will have 3 finalists next year. Okay, I mean, I guess that's one way of looking at it. Again, if you're going back to the first hour, you're saying there's a chance that Love and Price, they haven't said they're not coming back. So I guess technically there's still a chance. So the question here is over under 3.5, and maybe 3.5 is a little bit rich, but again, we're talking about the next 13 years, and you look at where this program is right now and what it's going to, and the kind of recruiting they're doing at the quarterback position, which is completely different right now than it was even 5 years ago. And so I am it's almost like you almost don't want to say it, but Carr is going to be a front runner going into next year for the Heisman Trophy.
I mean, it's gonna be him and Arch.
Yeah, I think that those two are going to be at the top of the list. And you kind of, look at what happened to Arch Manning this year, because he was kind of in that, category coming into the season. Didn't work out for him. Again, I think it's going to be different for CJ Carr based on what we've already seen from him. I'm going to take the little bit more optimistic route than you, because this is like look at the track record that a program like Alabama had, with all the Heisman finalists they had with Nick Saban. Now, what were they doing? They were competing for national championships. They didn't always have elite quarterbacks, but they were elite teams. They were competing for championships. And as a result, you had, in terms of non-quarterbacks winning Heismans, Alabama, they were right up there. And so I think that Notre Dame is going to have the quarterbacks. They're going to have other great athletes to go with it as well. And we're talking about a 13-year stretch. There will be a question of, is Marcus Freeman still here 13 years from now? Because if he is 13 years from now, that would mean a 17-year tenure for Marcus Freeman at that point. But I think that where the program is, they're going to fit all the criteria that you need to have Heisman Trophy finalists. So I'm going to go over. I'm going to say over 3.5, but you're going under 3.5. Okay. All right. By the way, from the YouTube chat, Archer said, did you see where the Ferris State head coach said he'd rather play Notre Dame than Harding, who they play in the Division II national championship game? I did see it, and he didn't literally mean it. He was trying to make a joke about it, because apparently they're both undefeated. I think they're both 15-0, Ferris State and Harding. And he's like, man, I really don't want to play Harding. And it was more kind of an offhand, I'd rather play Notre Dame kind of thing. I don't think that he was taking a shot at Notre Dame by any means. If anyone just kind of saw that comment. Had you seen that comment that he made?
No, but it was interesting. I watched a 10-minute clip on Twitter last night of the Ferris State coach teaching his option offense and why it's so successful. So I saw him for different reasons.
Well, and isn't that where the Ole Miss quarterback, he came from Ferris, right? Yeah. Yep. They've produced some pretty good players up there at Ferris State. He's had a pretty good run himself up there. All right, next question. One of our quality P1 listeners, ND Forever 72, said last week he thinks Notre Dame will be in a conference within the next 3 years. So my question for you, over under 3.5 years before Notre Dame gives up independence and joins a conference full time.
Yeah, this is a big time over for me. I know some people, and this isn't a shot at Indy Forever 72,
Not at all.
but I think that there are some people who are overreacting and taking it. They're kind of falling along the lines of the national media of, well, now Notre Dame has to join a conference, and this is what you get for not joining a conference. And if you join a conference, all your problems would be solved. And it's like, I just listened to Pete Bavacqua get up there and say that Notre Dame loves nothing more than to be independent. That's their identity as a football program. And so I'm just going to have to say this is a big over for me. I think that they would find a way. And really, I think that the only way that they would join a conference is if it became, some big stipulation that you had to be in one in order to be in the college football playoff. But other than that, I think they're always going to find a way. And honestly, I think that there's a better chance that the college football landscape kind of becomes independent, meaning that there's just one big mega conference that all the Power Four teams that can get into the college football playoff would play in before Notre Dame would become independent. And I think Notre Dame would be involved in that mega group or whatever, because there'd be no conference championship. Your conference
Right.
championship would just be winning the title at
If
the
it
end of the
came
year.
to that, yeah, everyone would be like one pool and it wouldn't actually be a conference. It's just like you've got to be affiliated with the mega conference, the super conference, whatever, to qualify to get in. Yeah, exactly. Like Notre
Yeah.
Dame would be in that. So Stymie in the YouTube chat says over, way, way over. Tuco, first he said under, and then he said over. So I'm not sure exactly which direction Tuco is leaning there. I'm going to go over. Like I think that the only way it happens in a short amount of time is because the college football playoff format is obviously up for negotiation, whether that turns into 16 or 14 or whatever it ends up being. I think the only way that Notre Dame would be pushed into a conference is what you're saying, is if the votes for that, for whatever the next format is, would squeeze Notre Dame out. As of right now, they've got a place at the table. So like if they get squeezed out on that, I think that would force their hand and push them into a conference. Now, as of right now, because of the agreement that they've got with the ACC would be where they would have to go. But again, like what's going to happen with the ACC? Does Notre Dame find a way out of that conference and find their way someplace else? So I'm going over. I think it's going to be over. Because again, they're not going to get squeezed in a short amount of time. Now, Ira Chi-Town says we'll join a conference, but it'll be the Big East. Well, that can't happen for football because there's no Big East football right now. So like if Notre Dame is going to join the Big East, it would just be for the Olympic sports, and then football would have to find another way. So that's not going to happen in terms of football. Indy Forever 72 says if the Big Ten and SEC collude in some fashion, which is possible, it very well could happen. Yes. I think that would be part of whatever happens with a new college football playoff format. Like when the format expands, we all know the Big Ten and the SEC are running everything in college football right now. So yeah, that could squeeze them, but I don't see that happening like within a 3 to 4 year window. I think that things are much more 5+ years down the road. Now, as we've seen, things can change, and they have changed drastically in a short amount of time in college football. But as we stand right now, I think that Notre Dame is it's not teetering nearly as bad, like the Paul Feinbaums of the world who say, well, Notre Dame got left out of the playoff because they're not in a conference. No, they didn't get left out of the playoffs because they're not in a conference. They got left out of the playoffs because they lost 2 games. And as a result, that put them right there on the cut line with other 2 and 3 lost teams. And that's what ultimately pushed them out of the playoff. I mean, Miami was in the same boat as Notre Dame. They happened to get in. Was it because there was a conference? Well, you could claim some collusion, obviously. And it sounds like there were some backdoor things maybe going on. But Notre Dame didn't get squeezed this year because they weren't in a conference. They just got squeezed because they lost too many games. And I don't see that happening next year. Like when you look at the schedule next year, The outcry against Notre Dame is more likely to be, look at this soft schedule they're playing. Of course they're undefeated. Like that's going to be, I think that's going to be the conversation surrounding Notre Dame in November. People are going to be knocking Notre Dame's schedule. They're going to be knocking their independence again, but they're going to be talking about, well, see, of course you can be undefeated when you get to put together your kind of schedule like that. It's just the way it's going to be. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, more rapid fire when we continue. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Rapid Fire continues along with Jesse Stiers, Sean Stiers. We were talking about Notre Dame and their schedule next year. And in the YouTube chat says, Josh says, I still see 3 ranked opponents, USC and Miami, possibly SMU and Navy are ranked. But, ranked, but they're not going to be like Miami is the only one. Maybe USC has a chance to be top 10. I would say those are the only 2 teams that have a chance to be top 10 next year. It's just like
Miami's going to suck.
I think that there's a good chance that happens. They're obviously not going to have Carson Beck next year. They're going to look a lot.
Their whole defense is going to be new again.
Yeah. How stable is Cristobal able to keep that program? Stymie says Miami will probably cancel. Well, they got their way. They got into the playoff, so I don't think there's a reason for them to cancel now. But there was obviously a lot of that going around before the final playoff field was announced. You doing all right there?
I think the best part of my day was I got a haircut this morning.
Your crop looks a little fresh. It does look fresh. I'll have to say that.
And then immediately after, it was just downhill.
Stymie says he hopes next week's Festivus show has a sponsor allowing 2 full hours of uninterrupted airing of grievances from the laundry list. I don't know about that. It would be good if we could find one, though. Fill in the blank. Michigan alum Adam Schefter shilling for Michigan and Sharon Moore on ESPN last week was blank.
Oh, it was just downright bad. And it's just unacceptable at the end of the day. Excuse me. Do people find themselves in tough life situations, and are we all human beings at the end of the day? Sure. Um, but Sharon Moore made a series of significant mistakes, and there's no reason for Adam Schefter to get up on, a national syndicated program like ESPN and basically, not make excuses, but I mean that's basically what shilling is at the end of the day. Is you're trying to find excuses for someone in their wrongdoing. So it's just sad to me, and really just kind of embarrassing too that ESPN.
I think so too.
I don't know if ESPN obviously probably didn't know what he was going to get up there and say, if anything at all, but at some point you just got to cut his mic because there's just again, it's not like Sharon Moore, for lack of better terms, it's not like he like killed someone or something, but like he still did a lot of bad things, and it's just not excusable, especially coming from someone like Adam Schefter.
I mean, you might as well have just put a fan in that chair and let them go up there and stump for Michigan, because like Adam Schefter is an NFL insider. The reason he is on ESPN and talking on any of the ESPN programs is because he is an NFL insider. He also happens to be a University of Michigan alum. So, like, what purpose does he serve talking about Michigan and glossing over everything? Oh, like this is a person, and they're all people. Like all these people that they're all people. Most of them have families. We all know that. But to basically let a Michigan fan sit up there and talk in defense of Sharon Moore and Michigan, there was no place for that. Like he does not talk about college football on the regular. Like the only crossover he has is when it comes to NFL draft time. There was no reason for Adam Schefter to get up there. And it's just a joke that ESPN and the producers of any of those shows let him get up there with a microphone in front of him and a camera in front of him and talk in defense of Michigan the way that he did. Like like Taylor Lewan, a former Michigan player, was on those shows as well, and he didn't do that. Like you tune into that for some kind of actual analysis, and that's not what you got. It was just a joke that ESPN let Adam Schefter do that.
Yeah, no one felt bad for Lane Kiffin when he got fired from USC, and all the problems that he had going on in his world. So.
Right, exactly. Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia finished second in the Heisman balloting, and after Saturday's ceremony, he went out clubbing in New York, and he had that sign that said F Indiana and posted F all the voters on Instagram. So let me ask you this. Do you think Diego Pavia is more Johnny Manziel or Baker Mayfield?
This is a really good question. And I think this question should be amended to the more bark than bite award recipient, Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
I think he's more like Johnny Manziel. The reason why I think he's like more like Johnny Manziel is I think that Manziel was more kind of that I don't give a type mentality. I can go out here, say what I want, party as hard as I want, be seen doing whatever I want. And I think Baker Mayfield, as hard as it is to say, and especially maybe during his time in college, I think he was a bit more of a respectable kind of professional athlete, preparing for the NFL. Everyone knew that Johnny Manziel was a mess, and he couldn't keep his mouth shut, and he had the partying habits and the drinking habits. And when you're Diego Pavia and you're going out and you're doing stuff like this, it's just not a good look, especially for a guy that wants to get drafted, come April time. And so I just think that, yes, was Baker Mayfield childish? Yeah. But I think he had a little bit more of a sense when to kind of wrap it up, zip his lip, and just focus on football. And there's a reason why Baker Mayfield has had a really good NFL career and Johnny Manziel didn't.
Yeah, I think that there's, kind of like a Venn diagram, and Diego Pavia crosses over to both of them, like with his emotional, play, his emotional style. That's Baker Mayfield. But then obviously the flash and the first opportunity that he gets, it's like, you're in New York City. Okay, we get it. But, and he's got the women and the partying and the clubbing and all that stuff. Like to go out, because I think he was asked at some point, during the thing, I can't remember exactly what the question was, but he was asked about other Heisman winners, and he basically put himself above everybody. It's like, okay, we get it. You're a confident guy, but there is definitely much more, I think, as you said, the more bark than bite. I think that there is, it's just such a bad look to be out there and, to be considered for the Heisman and to be a runner-up for the Heisman Trophy, considering where you came from. Like, you're an under-recruited guy, similar to Baker Mayfield. You had to, you started off at a junior college, and then you go to a little bit bigger school, and you end up getting fortunate enough to go to Vanderbilt, and you help turn the fortunes of Vanderbilt. All that stuff is great, but I think that you have to be able to handle that with a little, with a lot different composure than what he did. Because, look, you should have learned early on, you're not going to get everything you want. You have to earn it. And for him to go out and act the way that he did is just like much more Johnny Manziel. And I think that if he's going to be a pro going forward, he's going to have to be more Baker Mayfield than Johnny Manziel, because I agree with what you said. At the end of the day, Baker Mayfield might have had, like a lot of emotion and, all those different things to his play. They're undersized like each other, but Baker Mayfield was willing to hunker down and do the work. And the question now for Diego Pavia, as he tries to have, whatever kind of professional career, is he willing to hunker down and do the work, or does he just want to take a paycheck and go out and party like Johnny Manziel? As of right now, people are leaning much more toward Johnny Manziel, I think. So where was it? I must have missed it. Somebody said, this is interesting. Mike says more Jameis Winston. And
I don't see Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is just Jameis Winston. And especially at the college level, I think he was just an airheaded guy, Like, I don't think he really thought through a lot of his decisions. But a lot of his decisions weren't like going out and partying and, getting in trouble. Like, it was taking some crab legs from a grocery store. Like, there's a big difference between that and getting drunk and fighting someone in the middle of the road than taking a couple crab legs.
Right. Salty says, go with the Salty quote. Where's the Salty quote? Oh, Salty shows why you don't do cocaine and meth at the same time. Or Pavia shows why you don't do cocaine and meth at the same time. Look, Jameis Winston, you can say a lot of things about Winston. Like you said, the crab legs and whatever at Florida State. I think that Jameis Winston is a guy who learned from those mistakes that he made when he was young. And when you look at the positive attitude, some would say he leans, too far into the positivity and all that kind of stuff, the way he talks and everything, right now. But Jameis Winston has been willing to do the work. Unfortunately for him, in terms of an actual playing career, it hasn't gotten him on the field, nearly as much as he would like, but he has remained, steadfastly confident in himself. And he tries to, to let that positivity rub off on others. And he has been a great teammate as well, because he's turned into a backup quarterback over the last few years. And he is, when Jameis Winston has been willing to do anything for the team, from everything that I've seen in his time in the NFL, like with Cleveland and the New York Giants this year, the past couple of years. He doesn't go out and complain and pout because he's not on the bench. Or because he is on the bench, rather.
Yeah, he's turned into a really just like true professional at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's take our last time out, and then we'll be back to wrap things up. Got a few more things to go in rapid fire. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Rapid fire continues and winds down. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We got the Wake Up the Echoes show coming up 7 o'clock right here on Sports Radio WSBT. Not sure what the guest list looks like for tonight's show, though. Along with Jesse Stiers, I'm Sean Stiers. So we were talking Diego Pavia. Who had the better weekend? Pavia losing the Heisman Trophy or Phillip Rivers coming back to the NFL and losing after 5 years in retirement?
This is an easy one for me. I'm going to say Phillip Rivers coming back to the NFL and losing after being in retirement for 5 years. I think that Pavia, made a name for himself all season, really propelled a Vanderbilt team and a Vanderbilt team that surprised a lot of people finishing 10-2 with some quality wins. He finishes, second place in the Heisman. And then he just has to ruin it all kind of by, some of the stuff we were just talking about, F this, F that, I'm the best all time, I'm the best this year, and then making a scene out in the clubs. Just not a good look. Phillip Rivers, again, not that he looked like a great quarterback out there, but he executed the game plan. He did what the Colts asked him to do. And they ended up losing in a field goal shootout. But I don't know if you've seen this part of Phillip Rivers. It's been circling around social media. You get 5 years of benefits from the day
Right.
you retire, and
That's what I was going to say.
he's
Yeah.
got 10 children. He's got a grandchildren. I'm pretty sure everyone in his immediate family gets those years. And so, I mean, we're talking about like up
He's covered.
close to maybe like 25, 30 people that might get an extra 5 years of insurances just because Phillip Rivers came out of retirement for one game. And so for me, that alone, with how big of a family the man has, that's a win in itself.
No, exactly. Exactly. Like things could not have, obviously, if they would have won the game, but like that's a really good defense he was going up against. And, like it felt like like Seattle. I don't know what happened with their offense. Like the Colts have a decent defense, but like for Phillip Rivers just to be in the game down to the end and to put the Colts into a situation where they could kick the go-ahead field goal. How about Blake Groupie, by the way, for banging that go-ahead field goal? But then they give it up, and then, like you said, to be able to tack on 5 years of NFL benefits, like that in itself is pretty good. I don't think he was living in the poorhouse by any means, but that's a pretty nice little incentive that Phillip Rivers got for coming back. So to be able to basically walk off the street and perform the way he did in his first game back, and being in his mid 40s, not a bad day for Phillip Rivers. You sent me something the other day, and I forgot to include this on the rundown today, but I meant to. Like, what does it say about the state of quarterback development in the NFL? Here, this is from Davis Maddock. The Phillip Rivers stuff is so dark for the sport of football. The NFL and college football have so neglected college football playoff development, while defensive coverages and schemes have evolved, that a fat grandpa is a better option than any team's QB3. If his body is even close to up to speed, I agree with the Colts that it's probably the right football move, and I absolutely hate that the average young quarterback looks at a 2025 NFL defense and has no clue what they're seeing. What do you think about that aspect of it?
Yeah, I think this is a really hard question because I think it's a double-edged sword. I'll start with, obviously Steichen was Rivers' offensive coordinator during his times with the Chargers. And so the idea is that Phillip Rivers knows this offense. And then one of his own players, I guess, even made the comment that, like, we run the Colts offense. Like, so there's a lot of familiarity between Phillip Rivers, Steichen, and that offense. And so I think it makes sense because the Colts are a team that are still they're still trying to make that playoff push. They're still trying to make that division win.
They're still in position right now.
Yeah, they're still in position. And so it makes sense because of just like Tom Brady could probably go out there and do what Phillip Rivers did, right? And so, like, there's just a certain level of professional football knowledge that Phillip Rivers still possesses, where they felt comfortable that he could just make all the right reads and really not put them in a bad spot type situation. They could trust him to not put him in a bad spot, make a gutsy throw or something like that. But the flip side of that is, how could Riley Leonard not execute a game plan that doesn't call for many passes over 10 yards? Like, that is his bread and butter,
Yeah,
And
but he is injured. He did hurt his knee the week before. He had a PCL injury. And, like, so much of his game, as we know, is the ability to run the ball. Like, now we saw with Phillip Rivers, he was a stationary target. I don't know that Riley Leonard was going to be comfortable going out there and, and like playing that kind of game with his knee according to them, in the shape that it was in. But at the same time, the Colts have already said, Steichen has already said Phillip Rivers is going to start next week as well.
Yeah, so I just think the other aspect of this, getting back to the original question, it is disheartening because a lot of these young quarterbacks are expected to be drafted and play right of way, but they just don't have the knowledge to play right of way. They don't have the knowledge to read defenses, to be in the film room, to understand split coverages, pre-snap to post-snap, half the field coverages. Like, there's just a lot going on in the NFL. And I do agree, the NFL schemes are only getting harder and harder. Like, an NFL defensive coordinator is going to figure you out. That's the hardest part about being in the NFL is
Yeah.
what worked last year isn't going to work next year. And so their defensive coordinators are always evolving, just like offensive coordinators. So I would say it is disheartening that more younger quarterbacks are thrust into a position and expected to succeed, but they don't necessarily understand, what it takes to succeed, reading defenses, the preparation, the practice. And so that part sucks. But I mean, all these people complaining about Phillip Rivers, again, you just have to realize him and Steichen have such a long history that Steichen knew that he
I mean,
probably
that's why
knows
they
just
brought
as
him
much
back.
about the offense that Steichen does.
Yeah, that's why they brought him back, obviously, because he had some familiarity with what they were doing. It's not like they just plucked him out of nowhere and said, you're going to be the guy. They had a history together. But I do think it's a pretty sad state in the NFL because like it feels like the front end quarterbacks, there's like a lot of really quality, front end quarterbacks, but it's the guys behind them. It's like, why are these guys even on the roster if this is the kind of development that they're getting? And it just feels like too many of these NFL guys. It felt for a while, like look at Jaden Daniels in Washington last year. They obviously played to his strengths, and that worked out. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles to an extent, for like Jalen Hurts has been around for a while. They played to his strengths, and that worked out. Now he's got a new coordinator this year, and I think that maybe that's part of the problem. The fact that he's just, himself not that great at reading defenses and making throws. I think that that's part of the problem as well. But I don't think enough of these guys in the NFL play to the individual strengths of these quarterbacks, and that
Yes.
creates part of the problem, a big part of the problem.
And everyone loved to make fun of me for my Mike McDaniel's take, but he's one of those guys where, and this has kind of been his downfall, I think, the last year to two, is his whole offense is tailored around Tua and what Tua can and can't do. And I
Mhm.
I think that is more, to me, like, you're the head coach of the offensive coordinator. You get paid a lot of money to not just jam your scheme down any quarterback. Like, you should take the time. Like, I remember the Hard Knocks when Mike would talk about, man, I was up on YouTube watching your highlights last night.
Right,
Like, that's what
right.
more we should see more of that out of NFL coaches rather than being lazy and be like, you're gonna run my scheme, even though it doesn't it's not maximizing your potential or the team's potential.
Irish Shytown says that's why we need a true NFL affiliated minor league. I don't completely disagree with that. Like I feel like these spring leagues that they keep trying to come up with would have more success if there was something that was actually affiliated with the NFL. And
Just slapped NFL team names to it and
yeah,
basically allow the practice squad or the non 53 roster and a few more invites every year, and it's an open invitational. Each team has their own team and you just play, and I think that brings more recognition to it. I think you get more fans if you attach NFL names to these teams, but you know that's just my opinion.
I agree. I agree. This one was on Good Morning Football recently. We've got just a couple minutes here. Been trying to get this one in. Fill in the blank. The one thing from your childhood you wish you could still do is blank.
Is run around and not feel tired the next day. Like, I
You're not
miss
even 30 yet. What are you
I
talking
know,
about?
but I miss just being able to, like, go and playing hours of pickup basketball, followed by maybe I'm going over and playing some wiffle ball at the park, and then maybe I'm sprinting up and down the streets because we're ding dong ditching people. Like, I can't recover as quickly as possible. My
Tell me about
body
it.
hurts, but it feels like I guess what I'm getting at is when you're a kid, like you just have extreme stamina, you know?
Yes, your energy is boundless, and you're just out there doing things that you love to do without a care in the world, right?
Right. And so I just wish my body could move in that kind of motion, and I didn't have to feel it the next day. Or
Fantastic.
the other part of it is like you get frustrated because you're like, damn, 10 years ago, I was much more athletic than I was right now.
There's that too. I've got bad news for you. The older you get, it doesn't get any better. So, you've got that to look forward to as you continue to get older. Like that's one I thought of, like that same thing, but I actually I'm going to steal Kyle Brandt's answer. This is the answer he gave, and that is to be able to eat whatever you want and not have to worry about what it is you're putting into your
That's a
body and
great one.
what it does to your gut and everything, like just to be able to eat and not have to count calories and protein and, sugars and everything else. To eat without impunity is what Kyle Brandt said, and that is my answer as well. So that's what I would love to be able to do, to go back to childhood and to never have to worry about what it is you're eating. I want a salami sandwich. I'm going to have a freaking salami sandwich. I want some fried chicken. I want Hardee's. I'm going to have all that.
I will say, I got this Garmin watch as a wedding gift from you and Mom, and it tracks your fitness age. And I turned 30 in a couple months, and it says my fitness age is 31. So maybe I'm not doing as bad as I thought I was.
That's actually fairly close to where you are then right now. That's not
Yeah.
bad at all. That's not bad at all.
I'd like to get my fitness age into the 20s, though.
All right. Sounds good. All right. We're going to wrap it up with that, as we've got to get out of here tonight. The Wake Up the Echo show is coming up next. Jesse will be back in a couple of days. Trevor will be in with me on tomorrow's show. We got a mailbag show coming up tomorrow. We will talk to you then. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.